What's going on, everybody? Randy here, Nerds Templar, chilling on a Saturday evening, a blessed Saturday evening to you all. Today, this evening, we will be going through watching live here episode 2 of Beyond Lumina, my own story. Everything in the story created by, I guess the only other thing there really is the logo and the music, both of which were created by me as well, if you're wondering. Like, subscribe, should be pretty good. Other creative things related. I've been mentioning in the past few streams, I have my new printer now. Can print decently heavy cardstock. I'm super excited about it. We're going to be getting into, hopefully, deeper into getting some kind of card game really made. I have it pretty much testable. It's really annoying testing with index cards. So I'm hoping to be able to make some kind of prototype cards and other things for other games. Got a bunch of stuff going on. If you're interested in anything like that, Temple Foundry stream is the place to be Monday mornings, 7:30-ish a.m. Eastern. But yeah, so because of that, because we got some decent cardstock, we can print up to, I believe, 110-pound cardstock, which is pretty good. That's like, without the paper on both sides involved, and probably like maybe some differences in rigidity, that's basically, I think, the thickness of regular playing cards. 110, maybe it's 120, but either way, 110 is quite good. I have right now 92-pound paper. I'm gonna get some 100-pound stuff. Might also get some 100-pound like shiny paper, cardstock that is, and we will be off to the races with making cards. But because of that, if we get any good art, the thing I need is art, because I can't do that part. That's the part I struggle with. So any good artists out there, or just decent artists, anyone who wants to try their hand at some art, feel free to join the Discord and post any art they have there, and it may be used in some prototype work. I'd love to reimburse people for it. Maybe in the future at some point I can. I can't promise anything, of course. At some point, maybe we'll have other ways to donate toward these things. We will at some point, eventually. Once I think these games are at the point where I should launch some kind of Kickstarter campaign for not just these games, but maybe we'll do a whole campaign for Nerds Templar games in general. Because we're going to be pumping some things out. I got some other ideas that have been coming to me. I'm probably reaching about 30 different games. Maybe about 10 of those are Fantasy Age series related. Maybe 3. I could probably push it to 4, perhaps. I could also probably push Fantasy Age a little further. Push the Wildlands is about 3 or 4 different games that we're doing the Wildlands series. I'd like to even make a Beyond Lumina game or 2. I was thinking about one I could perhaps do. And before we get started, one last thing. I'm just going to quickly recap. If you haven't seen, if you don't want to be spoiled, go back and watch episode 1, I suppose, and then come back and watch this and then catch all the other ones live. But episode 1, that was actually just Thursday evening we went over that. I'm sorry, clicked on the wrong thing. I'm trying to find the thing I'm looking for here. Okay, so what we got here is Aezic Zin, the lieutenant of the Free World Alliance. It's our main character. He's arriving home. This is a space story, so we're dealing with an interstellar space story. So just within Lumina, which is the name of the star or the sun for this solar system, which is then just named Lumina, is the name of the system. Aezic Zin is the lieutenant of the Free World Alliance military, one of the powers, if you will, in the world, in the universe, or in the in the system. And he's also commander of the frigate known as the Valiant. He's from Ravina, a world known as Ravina, which was the name of the first episode. And he's the son of Avon and Denena Zin, brother of Asta, Azor, and Ama. And he's also a lieutenant in the Ravinian military. but he's currently full duty with the Alliance because the Alliance is, that bigger military. He's on his way home, on leave to his home of Ravina. When the story begins, where we pick up, and he finds out about some destruction and devastation that one of the other powers of the system, known as the Royal Ascendancy, has wrought on his home of Ravina. Due probably because they're one of the main manufacturers and refiners of and harvesters of Aetherium, the strongest known metal in the system, in the solar system, of Lumina. Sorry, I have people, places, and things listed here for all sorts of different things. I'm looking at to give you kind of a rundown of everything. Everything important. So first, he's on his way. He goes home. He learns about it through a news broadcast, basically, while he's coming back home, just about to come on planet. So he's already kind of frazzled. He's already frazzled because he's dealing with some severe headaches that kind of just come and go randomly, sharp, painful, and then they're gone. Doesn't know what's up with that. He's actually also having a few memory problems. He knows he's on his way home. He just couldn't remember exactly what he knows. He knows vaguely what he was just doing. He just can't. He's having some trouble recalling some details at the moment. So on his way home, learns about all this. So he's more distraught as he lands, makes his way to his home region, his hometown, even, if you will. He goes home and looks for his family, finds none of them around. His older brother is another he's actually part of the Ravinian military, not the Free World Alliance. So his brother wouldn't have been, home necessarily. And but he finds nobody. He hears from another resident in Shefla, which is the name of a place. Shefla is the name of his hometown. Panya is the name of the region within Ravina, his home world. Yurda, the man that works at the Aetherium refinery, sees Aezic Zin there. He knows him. He knows him from when he was a young lad. Recognizes him eventually, even though he's in his full, of course, officer trappings, military officer trappings, which involves a rather large cloak sort of deal. And then so he's on his way back after finding nothing there. Meets up with another Free World Alliance military officer, a sergeant. Sorry, yeah, I was reading. I had this worded oddly. A sergeant who's also a security officer on her duty, if you will, on board a ship called the Triptych. Her name is Vala Rees. Meets her. She saw him in Cronus Prime, the name of the capital where Aezic landed. Was concerned, asked if her commander, if she could go and make sure that this lieutenant that was on his own was okay, because he was acting strangely. Again, they were on leave, her and her crew, subordinates and superiors, on leave currently for a day or so, while they are, again, as I mentioned, she is on the security team and fighter team of the Triptych, but that Triptych squad, that Triptych group, is currently on leave. They are helping to defend, or at least secure, Ravina now after the attack from the Royal Ascendancy. One of the other three major powers. We got the Free World Alliance, we got the Royal Ascendancy, and we got the Tansorian Federation, which we'll hear more of course, more from. Meets her. They go back to Cronus Prime together. They meet up with her superior named Sergeant Major Ty Ravin, and he takes Aezic Zin, Lieutenant, to the transport office where they try to find some more information. No luck. He then, having no idea what to do next, is going to go back home. And on his way back home, at the end of episode 1, He meets two figures, two strangers that he does not know, hence them being strangers. One of which, at the very end, identifies himself as a Ravinian officer of the military as well, just like he would be, named Zario Launer. In fact, he's also a lieutenant, just like Zin. Aezic Zin. All right, so that leads us into episode 2, Infiltration. Enjoy. After that long introduction.
Beyond Lumina, Episode 2, Infiltration. The bridge of the Scion sparked nearly lifelessly as it drifted through space. As the large warship was torn apart, the emergency systems sealed the bridge, and emergency life support kicked in. Of the 5 members of the bridge, only the commander, the helmsman, and the chief engineer were safe. The navigator was nearest to the breach on the bridge, and was pulled into space before the bridge was sealed. The security chief, seated next to the navigator, was gravely injured from the impact. The commander tended to him, as the others tried to improve their situation, to no avail. "Communications are down, sir," the engineering officer announced. "I'm not sure if there are any friendlies out there to hear us anyway," the helmsman replied, who had been looking out of the unbroken part of the bridge's viewport. They were drifting further and further from Sor, the planet they had been orbiting when the attack came, and there were no longer any other ships in their vicinity, nor did their nav array work to be able to confirm or deny they were alone. Their attackers had fled local space right after the Scion was destroyed. They must have assumed we couldn't survive such an attack, the commander thought. But he didn't think they would have survived such an attack either. No doubt it was the strength of the great warship that kept them safe for the time being. The security chief coughed painfully. Now he was quickly losing consciousness. "Jay, hold on," the commander said. The medical kit on the bridge was simply not enough to mend his wounds. They needed the rest of the ship, which was now floating debris. Now the security chief's only hope was a dramatic rescue at the last moment. But the commander already knew, based on their circumstances, how futile that thought was. Just then the helmsman spotted something through the viewport. "Hold on, is that a ship?" he asked the rest of the crew. The chief engineer walked over next to him. He squinted as the object rapidly approached. "You're right," he said with some excitement in his voice. "I think it is a ship." The security chief let out a chuckle the commander knew well. His own face was very grave. The ride to Animov took Aezic and the 2 Ravinian soldiers into the cold and high mountain peaks toward the northern pole of Ravina. As a son of Ravina, Aezic was used to low temperatures, but even for all their hardiness, Animov was an unlivable region before the space age. Then the Free World Alliance's technology allowed them to create livable conditions within the mountains, a way of living the Ravinians were quite used to. Still, very few actually lived in the region, for there was not much reason for Ravinians to move to such a place. Those that lived there normally were those with some specific reason for being there, mostly military or scientific reasons. Now it seemed it was serving as a bunker for a large portion of the remaining population. "Most of the Ravinian military is gathered here," Zario said, as they flew toward the settlement. "A few others are scattered, trying to find what they can about the security breach and the whereabouts of the captives. And my brother?" Aezic was only partially paying attention, his mind occupied with his family. But his brother was also a Ravinian soldier, and so it was possible this high-ranking officer knew where he was. "I'm sorry, we're not sure," Zario said. "We lost contact with a lot of our people off-world once the attack came, Azor included." Aezic felt like he was eluded at every possible step. Just one solid lead, and I would take it, he thought. Just up ahead, we're here, Zario finally said. Aezic was a little relieved. The thermals in his synth plate and paracloak were exceptional, but it takes much more than that to fight the biting cold of the Ravinian north. They entered a large and deep metallic tunnel built into the side of a cliff, which eventually brought them to a massive underground settlement. The artificial lighting high on the ceiling nearly gave the illusion of being back in the cloudless skies of Ravina. Aezic could see a lot of people here, civilians, and some hope returned. It was the most people he'd seen in one place since docking on Ravina. We gotta go up to see the captain, Zario said. He's eager to speak with you. Captain who? Aezic asked. This was the first time Zario mentioned a superior still being here. The way he had made it sound, the military was all but annihilated or scattered during the attack. Strange again, Aezic wondered, that our remaining forces wouldn't have returned after the battle had ended either. Captain Alderon, you know him? Zario asked. No, Aezic replied. He could have just been a lieutenant when I was last here, Aezic thought. The name sounded Ravinian to him, at least. Not that it mattered so much anymore. Their population had become quite a mix of races in the last 2 centuries, that it was certainly not uncommon to see other races who were proud Ravinians serving in the military. It was less common to see high-ranking officers that were not Ravinian by blood, but that too was slowly changing as the cycles passed. They ascended on their grav bikes until they were at the highest level of the complex, where a large building sat near the edge. They parked and entered the building, which was the captain's quarters for both private and public affairs. Captain Alderon was in his office when the 3 soldiers arrived. Lieutenant Zin, the captain said immediately as they entered. I am Captain Deroy Alderon. It is good to see you back on Ravina. Our land could use all the help she can get right now. Of course, Captain, Aezic said. I'm ready to serve however I can. I ask, though, that you allow me first to find out whether my family is here with you or not. I am sorry, Lieutenant, Captain Alderon replied. I had checked this in preparation for your arrival, and it seems that none of them are here in the complex. Aezic tried not to show his emotion, but it was difficult as he continued to run out of options. There were reports earlier on, however, the captain continued, that your brother and his crew were still alive out there somewhere on their cruiser. But I don't want to give you any false hope. I appreciate it, sir, Aezic said. That was the first good news he had received since coming back to Ravina. So, was there something you would have me do, now that I'm on world, Captain? Well, Captain Deroy Alderon started, pertaining to our current situation, we do in fact have a lead. We've confirmed reports of an unknown outpost located somewhere on the other side of Animov, which is sending signals somewhere near local space. They're masking the signal, so it's hard to pinpoint where it's going, but if we can get in there, we can find where they are relaying the signal. Now that you're here, we finally might have the strength to do it. Point out the location, Aezic quickly answered. I'll head there now. Easy, Lieutenant, the captain said. I know you want to find your family, but you're still a soldier, and I need you to go into this with a clear head if I'm going to send others with you. Of course, Aezic apologized. I'm sorry, but I'm ready to do what I need to. And who do you have in mind to come with me? Captain Alderon motioned toward Zario and the other soldier. Lieutenant Launer and his crew will accompany you. That is, if you're okay with handing over command to Lieutenant Zin for a while. I still expect you to work together, however. He said this last part to Aezic. Sure, I don't mind, Zario said. We'll get along great. We're going to really give it to these guys. The captain briefed the 3 soldiers on what they would be doing, and it was simple. Gain access to the enemy outpost, preferably covertly, then discover where they are sending their signal to. If they could, they would try to discover what the content of the signal was as well. After the mission briefing, Aezic and the others left, and Zario took him to meet the other members of his own team that would be joining them. Sorry for not introducing you this whole time, Zario said, pointing to the other soldier. He doesn't talk much. This is my right-hand man, Sergeant Major Maddox Valanth. Pleasure, Maddox said shortly. They quickly made it to the others, who were in a makeshift barracks not far from the captain's quarters. This is Sergeant Major Hawk and Sergeants Filini and Usion, and these are Valanth's subordinates, Sergeants Mecca and Argyle. Each saluted Aezic in turn. Good to meet you all, Aezic said. Looks like the fate of Ravina is in our hands. What do you say? I say I've been waiting too long to find some royal scum to introduce to my Aether Blade, Sergeant Usion rumbled. Yeah, I agree, Sergeant Filini said. I felt useless ever since the attack. I'm ready to do something. After laying out a plan for the following rotation, the crew went to their quarters to get some sleep before they began. Aezic was given private quarters in the military section of the bunker. He was pretty worn from all the anxiety of the day, but he still couldn't get to sleep, and the headaches that continued to plague him every so often did not help. Aezic barely had any time to return to his initial pondering over the events just prior to boarding the civilian transport to Ravina. He was too busy with everything happening to his home and his family. But his mind was still fuzzy, especially on the details of the days before he came back. Maybe I should just ask one of the crew, he thought. He meant the rest of the crew of the Valiant. I expect they all went on leave too. I guess I probably should check in with Keegan, or at least Cap, make sure I'm actually supposed to be on leave. Before finally dozing off, he sent a quick message to both his second-in-command and his commander. It was quiet in Cronus Prime, probably quieter than the city had ever been in its long history. Above the skyline hovered a grav bike, an Alliance soldier perched on top. Vala reclined back and stretched, two uncut knots of long blonde hair cascading down past the machine's undercarriage. This is the most boring leave ever, she thought. They had one more rotation before they were back on duty for a while, and at this point, Vala couldn't wait to get back on the triptych. I really wish Aezic Zin would have let me go with him. Definitely beats hanging around here. She was currently shirking as much of the cleanup duty as she could. She had Aezic on her mind for other reasons too. She wanted to convince him to stick around with them at Cronus, but she could hardly do that if his goal was to avoid everyone. If only I could give him some news of his family. Maybe I could get him to listen. I don't think I'll be able to find anything like that. She felt pretty bad for him. He seemed way out of sorts. Or maybe it just seemed that way. What would I know? Vala, a voice came from below, from the top of one of the nearby buildings. It was Sergeant Major Ravina. Would you like to join us today? He had obviously been looking for her unsuccessfully for a while, judging by his less than sunny tone. Yes, sir, sorry, she replied, straddled the grav bike, and cruised down to her commander. Vala followed Ravina, not just because he was her superior, but also because he was her mentor, perhaps the person she looked up to the most in this universe. Come on, Ravina continued. We're going to check out something in Panya. The new rotation began early for Aezic and the rest of his new crew, who were already prepped and on their way to the other side of Animal. Aezic wasn't willing to waste any time, and the rest of the crew seemed to feel the same. He hadn't received anything back from either of his comrades that he had contacted before he got to sleep. But if Kaiken is on leave, he thought, then I may not get a hold of him for a while. His subordinate was known for disappearing while off duty, as he was one who liked to indulge in the fancier and more active life of a wealthy member of the free world. Kaiken had come from such a life, so Aezic didn't fault him much, and he was nonetheless a loyal sidekick to him any time he was needed. It was a little more strange that the captain hadn't got back to him, but there could be 1,000 reasons for that, and Aezic had bigger things to worry about at the moment. The 8-man squad wound their way through cold mountains until they eventually neared the other side of the planet. The whole way around, Animov was very similar, cold, rocky, and barren. But they were coming up on the coordinates for the unknown outpost. Okay, are you all ready? Aezic asked the rest of the group. They all gave the affirmative. Okay, Mecha, Zarya said. You're up first. Get us in there. Argyle, cover her. The two sergeants from Balan's team made their way stealthily towards the barely visible outpost. They were the members of this elite force best suited for such a task. They also had two heavily modified effector nightcrawlers, grav bikes that were already suited for silence. Everything seemed to be going well as they crept closer to a small vent that would lead to a facility underground. Through their tri-optics, the rest of the crew could see them clearly from their vantage point in the distance, even though ashy snow had started falling pretty heavily once they began to get near the location. Mecha and Argyle reached the vent, made quick work of the cover, then swiftly slipped in. Mecha would try to infiltrate the operations room without alerting any guards, while Argyle kept her path clear. The other 6 crew members waited for a long time with no signal, and they began to grow anxious. It's been way longer than planned, Zarya said. We need to go in there after them. They haven't tried to make contact at all, Aezic replied. Is that normal? No, Lumina, it's not normal, Zarya said. Or, I don't know. They could have been blindsided for all we know. Aezic couldn't see any sign that there was unusual activity at the base, although there wasn't much activity visible at all from their location. Okay, let's go with Plan B, he finally said. The group then mounted their grav bikes and made their way down to the main entrance, a thick Aetherium door. One moment. Aezic drew and ignited his concentrated plasma blade, then slowly started cutting through the reinforced door. A look of envy passed over Sergeant Usian's face as he admired the powerful weapon. In about a minute, Aezic had cut a large hole through the door. Then Usian threw his large foot against it, knocking it in. Immediately, plasma pistol fire surrounded the 2 soldiers. Aezic quickly drew his concentrated plasma pistol from near his shoulder and fired it down what he assumed to be a corridor where their attackers were waiting. Usian took a few shots, but his aether plate soaked up the damage while he got out of the line of fire. The other 4 were beginning to engage the enemies with their own plasma weapons. Valanth carried a plasma rifle, a larger and more powerful ranged weapon, which he handled expertly. What Aezic found strange, however, was that the sergeant major didn't carry an aether blade, probably the only member of the Ravinian military he's seen without one. It was the first weapon a soldier in Ravina learned to use. Much of the time they had already learned as a child. But he couldn't doubt his skill with a plasma rifle. It wasn't long before they were no longer being fired upon, and so Usian peeked in to see what was happening. He saw nothing, so they advanced into the outpost. They had done a lot of damage inside during the firefight, and it looked like they wounded a couple of the soldiers inside, but it seemed they all fled. The crew cautiously crept farther in with no more resistance, until they came to the door which was supposedly the operations room. Just as they reached the door, the outpost began to shake and a loud rumbling was heard from nearby. Usian once more threw himself through the locked door, taking it clean off its hinges. The group rushed in with their weapons drawn, but saw Mecha and Argyle staring at them from the other side. I thought you wanted to do this quietly, Argyle said calmly. Why didn't you make contact with us after the time window passed? Aezic asked straightforwardly. Sorry, sir, Mecha replied. Stealth can be a slow process sometimes. We didn't think you'd barge in like that before trying to contact us. Everything was going smoothly. In the room with them were what appeared to be 3 very frightened operators, not combat-trained military. They're definitely ascendancy, Aezic thought, looking at their uniforms. They were standard non-military personnel uniforms, a sleek gray with crimson accent. The guards all retreated, Mecha said, when you made your grand entrance. They left these poor fools for us. We only need 1 to take back, Zarya said. Get rid of the others. The 3 operators began to panic even more. Aezic looked at him a little surprised. No, they all come back as prisoners. Zarya met Aezic's stare, then thought better than to stir up trouble over something like this. Fine, but one of them is riding back with you. That's fine, Aezic replied, then changed the subject. What have you found here? Well, Mecca began, we were able to discover where the signal was being sent, but we weren't able to decrypt it. One of those might be able to help with that, she motioned to the 3 operators. Let's get them and the information back to the bunker and figure out where we're going next. The crew cleared the outpost, and Usion destroyed it with explosives, annihilating everything inside. They then made their way back to the bunker. The return trip was quieter than the trip there, and Aezic wondered if it was because he had overruled the group's real commander. But he wasn't going to let Ravinian soldiers hurt non-military who had surrendered. That was another surprise for him, but if they were also worried about their loved ones, he couldn't fault them too much. When they arrived, Captain Otteron was glad to see everything went well. These were the men running the relay at the outpost, Zario told his commander. Maybe you can get one of them to tell you what data they were sending. He turned to the operators. Better to tell us now than to wait until we find out at the other location. Looking at the data they brought back, the group pinpointed the signal's destination on a map, and it pointed to an asteroid and a cluster of asteroids near the border to deep space. Well done, all of you, Captain Otteron said. Now, when you're ready, take the runner to that outpost and see what you can find out about our people. I'll deal with these. He motioned toward the operators. I know you want in, Zin, so you lieutenants will have to co-op this mission again. No problem, Zario replied first. Aezic was a little relieved. Yeah, Aezic said, we're ready to go too. The rest agreed, and they made their way to the hangar where the runner, one of the few Ravinian cruisers left, was docked. Now, Captain Otteron said to the operators once the crew had left, we have many ways to get the information we want without resorting to violence. He smiled. Shall we see what options are available to you? The operators looked at one another, dreading what awaited. Soon the crew had the runner prepared and ready for space, and they began undocking. As the others were a full crew, they took their respective positions on board. Hawk was the helmsman, Valanth the navigator, Mecca, Argyle, and Usion headed security, and Philony was the engineer. They took no supporting crew, as they wanted to be able to maneuver more easily once at the enemy's outpost, so they stayed in their small force. Aezic thought they were rather unorthodox in how they handled the ship, but it seemed to work for them. It should be a pretty quick trip, but it's in the open, Valanth said. We're not going to have much cover as we approach. They're going to see us coming light years away, Zario added. Based on the size of the asteroid, the outpost can't be that big, Aezic said. It shouldn't be much harder to take than the last one, assuming they haven't already gotten reinforcements. He was chastising himself for being so quick to barge into the last outpost. We may have made it out without alerting the guards, he thought. That would have probably made this a whole lot easier. Soon the runner neared a small group of asteroids, among which was the outpost they hoped would hold more answers about where their people were taken. Get all of their names, assign a number to anyone who doesn't check out, and put them on the transport. And be sure you know what you're doing, Sergeant Major Robin said to his subordinates, Bala, and his other sergeant named Maloon, along with their teams of soldiers. The soldiers quickly began sorting through all the people they had rounded up in the small town in Panya. All were there, men, women, children, elderly. The soldiers were thorough. Sir, Bala reported, looks like we found some more. Good. Load them up and let's get on to the next location, Robin replied. Several people of all ages were placed on the transport they had come in, which already held people from previous stops. Once they were in, the soldiers filed in and the crew sped off for another town. Does it ever end? Bala asked her commander on the way to the next site. Not in my experience, no, he replied. But I suppose that's why you enlisted in the first place. He looked at her. For justice, right?
There you have it. Episode 2 of Beyond Lumina, the Book of Aezic. Of course, as any story, the more you get into it, the more starts happening. So, yeah, let's go back, and your artwork, please, would be just very appreciated. So we don't ever have to see mine again, ever. But I do have scenes throughout that just happen throughout the story, right? To just give an idea, some sort of visual representation of what was happening the whole time. Again, this is the beginning, and I should have also mentioned, I meant to, in the recap of episode 1, there was also the very beginning of episode 1 had that short piece about the crew of the ship called the Scion. And in the first episode, in the very, very, very beginning, the first thing that is mentioned is that crew and how they were drifting along. They had just been attacked, blindsided, and they were surprised by it. They were drifting along, and then something happened. Something was coming right at the end, and then it cuts to darkness. Just imagine if this was an actual show, and you didn't have to just listen to me reading the story. I think it'd be a pretty awesome show. Just we have zero production value here, so that's what you're dealing with right now. Maybe in the future, but also that reminds me, with the art. If we have some cool art, guys, I would love to make some cool Beyond Lumina just art cards, and we could give those away. I think that'd be super great. But yeah, and then in the beginning of this one, then we return to the crew of the Scion after another larger attack, where their ship is then destroyed basically completely. And then again, as you heard, of course, they saw somebody coming again for them after that. But here, yeah, our first scene here drawn by me, and again, it's about as good as I could do either way, but I basically just did it real quick, like a quick one of these kind of deals. Drew it all in real fast, and that's what we got. This is Animov in Ravina. Ravina's the world, Aezic's home world. They're in the northern reaches here, called Animov, and it's very cold. They're in this mountainous. It's a lot of mountains there. Again, the sky is still this ashy, dark color instead of the pretty much like a lavender, maybe a more of a bluish lavender color, maybe a little bit like a a dull color of what you see here in the Beyond Lumina logo is what the sky is normally. So very different than the darkness that you see now because of the attack that was mentioned in episode 1. and also I meant to mention that's one of the big things. Aezic is surprised that he hadn't heard about the attack on either the Scion or the attack on Ravina, which seemed to have happened around the same time from what he could gather. And they both had happened. I think I said something like several cycles ago, which would be a universal cycle, which will be mentioned later on. It's basically a day, or what they count as like the official universal day for everyone, however long, however many hours that would be for everybody then. So universal cycle could be, or rotation, that is, not cycle. Cycle would be a year. A universal rotation would be, could be for like a planet that's right next to Lumina. Could be several planetary rotations for that planet. And then it could be, of course, it could take several planetary rotations, or I should say, it would take, perhaps it could, for the ones in the fringe, which are the cold outer worlds, basically the outer rim, like kind of deal, called the fringe. They're the very cold worlds. They would, of course, take more universal rotations to reach one full planetary rotation. Anyway, it had been several universal rotations since the attacks happened, and that was what surprised Aezic. He thought he would have heard about both of those things in some manner. The attack on the Scion, which was a renowned warship in the Free World Alliance military, and the attack on his homeworld. Oh, sorry, still got the... Actually, I don't think you can hear that, but let me mute that anyway, just in case. So yeah, we have them. Zario there. Zario's in front leading there, and there's Maddox Valanth, now his name revealed in episode 2. The second in command, if you will, sort of. Bohawk being the other one that is met later on in the episode, being the other sort of second in command, the other sergeant major. Or I'm sorry, the other, what do we call them? The sergeant majors. And then of course you have a Lieutenant Zario Launer there, and then Zin, Aezic Zin, our main character there on his red bike. Yeah, so that's what's happening there. Now they're inside that big bunker facility, which is where all the Ravinian citizens have basically been taken. And that's the color, the actual color of the sky. It's the artificial lighting they have inside there for all the citizens, and that's basically just towers upon towers of places, homes, things, temporary places for living quarters. And then you got a little picture of Aezic and Zario down at the bottom. Zario there with the blue hair on the right, a little bit more pale. Aezic with the spiky brown hair, still sporting his tri-optics. And then we got Vala relaxing up high above Cronus Prime, the city, the capital city of the world, where they're still stationed on leave, but on leave in a war-torn world, which means they're basically helping cleanup duty while they're on world before going back into space, into basically orbiting, and finally gets caught by her superior there, and they go off. They don't go on cleaning duty. They go off to do something else instead. And then here they are doing the whole infiltration. I could have put another infiltration scene in here probably, but this is after Mecha and Argyle have infiltrated the bunker, the hidden secret bunker of the enemy, unknown enemy, I guess, at the point. But they had an inkling of who it would be. They waited a long time for them to hear back from the two that snuck in. They didn't hear back, so they decided to break in the front door. That is the scene we see here. Of course, then again, Aezic still wearing his, of course, Free World Alliance military stuff there. The concentrated plasma blade, glowing a very vibrant blue indigo-like color. And here you see the regular plasma those are the plasma blasts of the plasma pistols and rifle here of Maddox Valanth in the middle there. You see the color distinction. This is more of a, what do you call that? Not quite cornflower, but even more almost toward an aqua. And then you have who else is here? So yeah, there's Maddox Valanth. There's Filony over here. There is there is Zario, hood drawn now in combat mode, and there is Bo Hawk, right? I get everyone there? Yeah, that's right. And then here's, of course, Usion and his full Aether Plate, the big old tank guy who would, if need be, stand in the doorway and take some blows because the Aether Plate can handle the normal plasma blast fire. It wouldn't be able to handle this concentrated plasma blade, as this door found out, made of the same material as the Aether Plate here, Aetherium, which again is harvested. One of the main places it's harvested, in fact, in the whole Lumina system is on Ravina, here on Ravina. And again, that is speculated why the attack probably happened on Ravina by the Royal Ascendancy. Here they are back in the back at headquarters, if you will, temporary headquarters. There is Captain Otteron, and there is the Ravina symbol, if you will. Again, they're on Ravina. They're dealing with the Ravina military now, which Aezic is a part of, but he just rarely has the time, if you will, to act in that capacity. He's normally always acting in the larger capacity as a lieutenant of the Free World Alliance. There he is again in the middle. There you have Zario and his crazy blue hair. It's not supposed to be as spiky and as long as Aezic's, but it is still has a little bit of a spike to it, I guess. And there again, his right hand man, as always, with his hood drawn up all the time, Maddox Valanth standing there. There you have Mecha and Argyle on the other side, the two that infiltrated the place, the two stealthy folk of the group. And then you have those three operators of the Royal Ascendancy who were taken captive standing there. They should probably be a little taller than that, but yeah. Anyway, I think and then there's them on approach to the asteroid outpost at the end of the episode there. Inside, taking the Runner, ship known as the Runner, into enemy territory. And there, finally, the last scene is also the last scene of the episode. The gathering up of some of the civilians within a region, the region of Pania, which is Aezic's home region in Ravina. That's where they're at. That's, again, of course, Vala with her long gold locks, and then Sergeant Major Ty Ravim, again, obviously, of the Free World Alliance military. The bigger military, the Ravina is a part of the Free World Alliance, which is why they're here doing cleanup. And then lastly, there is Maloon, the other sergeant under this fella here. Again, Ty Ravim, and that's that. Please give me your artwork. Save us all from that. But that is episode 2. Join me. It'll be Wednesday night when we do episode 3 live. You can catch up. You can also recap if you really feel like it. I guess you can go spoil it for yourself and go watch the actual episode 3 before we do the live viewing. And again, we're going to be doing Wednesday evenings and Saturday evenings every week. And then once we get through the first 10 episodes that I have posted, I've had posted for about a year or whatever, then we will get back into the new episodes, or we will get into the new episodes, which will start, of course, with 11 and move on to who knows, until at least when the Book of Aezic ends. But that's not the only story. This story began, I was just kind of writing it as I went. I was maybe a couple episodes ahead of what I was releasing. It's kind of just something to do to begin. I have other stories that are much more prepared, much more worked out, and have tons of documents involved. very, very in depth. But then this one, I just kind of was thrown together, and I just wanted to do it and start releasing it, so I did. And it's kind of grown on me, though, obviously, as I thought it might. And now I'm at the point where I do actually, as I wrote more, everything kind of fell into place, and we're at the point now where pretty much more than just the Book of Aezic is kind of set already what's going to happen. I don't have it all like outlined yet, like in a hard copy form, but it's all outlined at least in my head. So I'm getting through a lot more episodes, so those will be released. Probably again, I'll just keep with the Wednesday and Saturday releases probably, unless for some reason I feel I have to do just once a week. I think I'd prefer to do twice a week. Yeah, so tune in again for the next one, Wednesday evening, about 6:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday, so have a blessed Sunday. But I will be back Monday for the Foundry stream. We'll talk a little bit maybe even about Beyond Lumina, being that it's a creation that belongs in the Foundry podcast. We'll also be talking about all the other games, all the games, I should say. New things I've maybe come up with. I won't really talk about them, of course, again, have to keep the details at a minimum for now, but as I can, I'll sort of divulge more and more information, and eventually once a lot of them again are at testable phases. Many of them have been tested by my family already. We've been playing them. They're fun. We'll probably soon then maybe get to the point where we can do some kind of perhaps Kickstarter campaign to see what we can maybe do with these things in the real world. But I've been researching more and more, trying to figure out more about like intellectual property laws and stuff, and it seems like maybe things are looking up for being able to progress quicker than I had hoped. So maybe that's a good thing. So we'll be able to look forward to that. That's all I got. But yeah, definitely like, subscribe, join the Discord, become a Temple Nerd, join us in our endeavors to make wholesome, traditional, holy but not necessarily religious content here on our channel and abroad. Because I mean, honestly, yeah, if the Olympics opening ceremony, that's like a stark, perfect example of why we need to just forget about secular entertainment and media and basically just go our own way from it. And this, I think, that's why I started this channel. That's why I do what I do. A lot of what I do a lot of the same sort of things, just in like, in a public setting here where I live. Yeah, I think it's well past time for people to start. I mean, I think a lot of people have woken up at this point. They're not woke. They've awoken to the horribleness of wokeness. But they need to. I think we need to start acting on that a little bit. And I mean, I understand it's hard to act alone, and that's why we need to band together in a sense and give people like ourselves, right, something good to enjoy. It doesn't just have to come from me. I'm hoping it'll come from many others out there, many of you out there. Together with my own efforts, we can make some awesome things, I think. So join us for that. Become a Temple Nerd. Great things, I hope, await. And we can make much better stuff than what's out there now. I know it. Anyway, I'll see you for that. Foundry stream, Monday morning. I'll be back for some Pokemon collection, TCG collection on Tuesday morning. We'll be getting back into the heavy hitters, big box thing, opening a few packs from there. And then we'll be back again, of course, Wednesday for the next episode of this, episode 3 live viewing. And then, Thursday, we will be here with the Quartermaster stream, which is our marketplace stream. Also check out our TCG player market, link in the description, just like Discord is, and eBay store, but there's not a whole lot posted there just yet. And then again, Friday, we'll be back with more Pokemon TCG in the evening, followed by Saturday evening, just like tonight, with another episode of this. That's the run and schedule, folks. I'm Randy, and this is Nerds Templar. I will catch you later. Maybe I'll catch you in the Discord. Peace.